Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where we tackle a different industry and learn how technology is transforming it. Well, today I want to explore the trends in industrial IoT. Because today's guest is Marc Overton, who's responsible for Sierra Wireless Solutions and Services. And he joined that company back in 2017 from Cisco Jasper, where he was a managing director of global innovation and sales for Cisco IoT business. And throughout his career, he's also launched a connected payment solutions, being the VP of wholesale and IoT at EE, which included 27 mobile partners hosting more than 6.5 million subscribers, generating 2.5 million IoT connections. And even earlier in his career, he also had senior positions at Orange, as well as Hutchinson's 3G UK, Europe's first 3G mobile operator. In short, I think it's safe to say that Marc knows his stuff. So if industrial IoT trends are your thing, you're in for a treat. And I'm hoping we can all learn something today from Marc's vast experience and knowledge in the industry. But enough from me. Let's get Marc onto the show now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So Marc Overton. I'm the Chief Solutions Officer at Sierra Wireless.
Excellent. And Sierra Wireless does have a bit of a reputation as being one of the leading IoT solutions providers that combine devices, networks and software to unlock value in the connected economy. But can you set the scene a little and tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you solve and what makes you unique from all the other solutions out there?
So one of the biggest challenges of IoT is actually getting them deployed and commercializing them. We have seen, not unusually, 75% of businesses struggling to get their IoT solutions to work. They are, by their very nature, large systems integration programs, getting a device to work with an application over a network. And that integration is creating delays in rolling out projects. And a lot of projects are failing because the commercial business benefits are not being realized. So we are focusing on getting the data from the edge device, from the sensor, from the gateway that the company is trying to get information from, back into the company systems, and so that they can start to use it to build their applications off. So that is the pain point that we're really, really focusing on.
And there's a few areas reasons why I'm really excited to get you on the podcast today. One, because of your vast experience, but two, because I've also read recently about that you've released something called Sierra Wireless Octave. So can you tell me all about that and ultimately how you're unlocking data from millions of industrial assets? It seems like an incredibly exciting opportunity what you're doing here.
Well, no, it's brilliant. And by having the device, the endpoint, the cloud service, and the global connectivity piece, we've packaged it together to provide an end-to-end service that gets the data from the endpoint, from the edge to the application, so that the customer can really focus entirely on the data and the application itself. This is the biggest issue that IoT faces, getting that data at a timely manner, in a secure way, at a global level into the application. And we believe by providing that service, that customers can get to market quicker, they can realize their business benefits from IoT, and they can focus on that data. We also have innovative pricing around it. So instead of paying by the megabit and data rates, we are actually paying by event. So you get the piece of information that you need to manage your business at the time you need it, and you only pay for that bit of data.
And of course, the complexities of implementing and scaling IoT solutions can make it incredibly expensive, daunting, and also risky for many business leaders listening to attempt. So I'm curious, how are you overcoming those kind of challenges?
So we have the device, and all the IoT deployments need some form of device, whether it's a sensor, a gateway, a module, to get the data from the machine from back into the application. So we produce a device, and we embed within those devices the global connectivity and cloud service that enables the end enterprise to manage that device remotely, get the data off when they need it, how they need it, back into their application. So, we are focused on that part of the value chain, getting the data from the edge into the application. We then work in partnership with a lot of application providers to work with the enterprise to develop their IoT solution. But by providing a complete solution at the device, cloud, and connectivity level, that is one set of pain points that a customer doesn't need to worry about. And we can therefore speed up their time to deployment, their time to commercializing their IoT deployment. And that seems to be, exactly what enterprises need is help in partnering with the right companies to do parts of the IoT solution they need without it becoming a massive systems integration task.
And from the outside looking in, it sounds like you're almost enabling your customers to focus on building their business rather than actually reinventing the technical infrastructure. I mean, is that the mission? And if it is, how's that being greeted by your customers, presumably with open arms, I would imagine?
So that's a really interesting question. I'm really amazed how innovative some enterprises have had to be, because nobody's offering these solutions to enable them to do IoT. A large number of enterprises I speak to, they've gone off and done deals with individual operators. They've gone and sourced bespoke devices. They've done their own integration. They've built teams of people internally to do that, all of that. And it's become a bit of a cottage industry in some of these industries. And for us, it's about making solutions that are replicable, that can, do away with some of that complexity to enable customers to really focus on what's important to them, which is actually getting the data that they need when they need it. And actually to focus on the business transformation that IoT provides, which is really around using that data to change the way the businesses operate and the way they talk to their customers. And a lot of that is around process and re-engineering and doing business differently. And we find that that's what is really important, because that brings commercial benefit to the business, not spending the time plumbing and knitting these solutions together. So, we found that we're being received really well by these industries who really want to get away from doing it themselves, because it's very complex, drives a lot of cost, to getting to work with a company that does this at a global level across a number of use cases, a number of industries, where we can share best practice and we can get them to enable their IoT solutions more quickly so that they can realize their commercial benefits faster.
And for people listening that are trying to understand how this would work in their world, do you have any examples of how early adopters of Octave have been able to innovate faster as a result?
The key thing about, it's not just Octave, but getting the data in a timely manner on a global level back to their service, their application, and their ERP system so they can do something with it is, ironically, is one of the biggest pain points. And actually the innovation around just providing seamlessly connected devices that light up anywhere in the world and deliver that data back to the business is something that doesn't really exist at the moment. So actually the speeding up the time to market, getting that reliability of data from the edge back to the device and to the application is key. And that's on top of that, you can build additional innovation. So targeting what data you need, when you need it, managing in a low power wide area scenario. So for example, a lot of the devices that we have now are being put into sensors in difficult parts of buildings to talk back to the to applications. Those devices, are potentially on battery operated. They need to be controlled in a very different way to minimize battery drain. They need to their data that comes off those devices needs to be really they only kept a very small amounts of data when needed. So that level of control over the data, bringing the data back to the application is also something that we're spending a lot of time on. That's one of the benefits of Octave. So you only get the data you need when you need it, which makes things like 10-year battery life a reality for some of these low power wide area applications.
And I'm curious, is there any resistance to change in this space? And how do you get businesses to adopt this entire culture change during a digital transformation of what many will see as a very traditional industry? Or is that a bit of a myth now?
It's really interesting walking around some massive factories where you're building huge lumps of steel and big machines that travel all over the world. Up until fairly recently, the lack of intelligence that these companies have about what their product is being used for, where it is, how the health of the machine, the remote diagnostics, fault management, predictive maintenance of these often very high value machines is quite limited. By putting sensors within the machines, pulling the data back in a timely manner, you can minimize the wear and tear of some of these machines, and you can really start to build different business models. A good example was around a deployment we did for air filters onto engines that were being used in large industrial machinery in open cast mines, and they were getting clogged up with dust. And when the air filter gets clogged up with dust, the machine stops to work. And we got sensors onto those air filters that were monitoring the dust buildup and sending alerts that the filters need to be changed. And as a result, that saved tens of thousands of dollars per machine in predictive maintenance and kept the machines working longer and more effectively than if we didn't provide them that service. So it's starting to making real differences behind the current business and traditional practices, but it's also enabling different use cases and the data to be used in a very different way to operate different services for customers.
I think I should also highlight that Sierra Wireless recently hosted its 7th annual Sierra Wireless Innovation Summit. Now, for people that are unaware of that or are interested and couldn't make it, what kind of conversations dominated that event?
A lot of it was around simplification of IoT, speeding up of deployments, and enabling companies of all shapes and sizes to really benefit from the Internet of Things and provide data back to their organizations to better serve their customers. The speed of deployment, what we call time to revenue, going from the initial procurement of the solutions and actually knitting it together into an end-to-end service was also a big part of it. And again, Octave was showcased as a standalone end-to-end service that can speed up the time to deployment and the time to test in particular, so people can get to understand how the IoT solution would work and get an indication and validate their business case to see whether or not the business benefits would be fully realized by what was originally thought in the business case. So very much more about the commercial benefits and about how technology can be enabling to the transformation of a business. I do believe we're now out of the science lab. It's now becoming much more mainstream. And it amazes me how more informed industries are now to how they can transform their business through IoT.
What's your primary focus over the next 18 months and beyond? And is there anything that excites you about the road ahead?
So I'm very excited by the rollout of low-power wide area networks and the delivery of that promise, the ability to do really bring to life long life batteries, 5-10-year battery lives, really small devices that can be put in many different use cases, wearable technologies, the ability to take data from almost anything and start to do something with it that makes that product better is critical. And then right behind it, you've got 5G, which I think will really change the way in which manufacturing is done, and private networks really around some large industrial use cases could be really interesting and make IoT much more sort of mainstream and accepted not just in heavy industry, but wider.
And as someone that's seen this whole industry evolve right from the days when you were working on 3G and your time with EE, etc. as well, what excites you most, or what are the biggest changes that you've seen throughout your career?
So I think it's gone from selling mobile phones and the ability to communicate to the ability to use technology to transform the way in which people live and the way in which businesses operate. The connecting people and assets and things to the internet and getting data off them is just the use cases are endless. Whether it's putting connectivity into an ankle bracelet to monitor where a prisoner is or an offender is going to helping a smart home application. There are many different use cases which we would never have dreamt about at the start of the cellular revolution. And it is very much, the technology that we've been talking about that is fueling the new industrial revolution, changing the way in which businesses operate, the way in which they can talk to their customers, the way in which they design and manufacture products is going to be based on the intelligence they're getting back through IoT.
Fantastic. Well, we've covered so much ground in this short conversation today, and I'm sure we could chat for hours about it. But for anyone listening that would like to find you online, find out more information about Sierra Wireless and continue that conversation with your team, can you just point them in the right direction or the best direction of doing that?
Yeah, so if you go to www.sierrawireless.com or type in Sierra Wireless into Google, you'll come across our website. There's plenty of white papers, use cases, blogs to tap into. There's a huge amount going on in terms of industry discussion and focus. And it would be great to connect.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. You've got so much experience in this space, and I'm not only fascinated by the work that you're doing at the moment and the work you're doing in the future, but like the question asked a few moments ago, that fantastic journey you've been on from just connecting people through a cellular device to where we are now and where we're heading. It's incredibly exciting. But more than anything, just a big thank you for sharing that story with me today. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
So many great insights there, and I'm hoping that business leaders listening will find value in hearing more about the complexities of implementing and scaling IoT solutions. Yes, it can make it too expensive and risky for many to attempt, but hearing how to overcome such challenges firsthand, that's where the value is, and that's one of the reasons that I record this tech podcast every day. But please, keep your emails coming through. I love hearing about how you're overcoming challenges, your viewpoints on the topics that we discuss on this podcast every single day. So remember, my door is always open to each and every one of you, and you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, and tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. And although, yes, we're a daily tech podcast, and we are booked up for 6 weeks in advance, if you would like to come on this podcast, I'll make you a promise. I'll make it happen and get you on here. So I'm interested in what you all learnt today. Keep the messages coming in, but it's time for me to run off into the sunset again. Don't worry, I'll return tomorrow like a bad smell in your podcast feeds. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.